This is online journalism. My name is Xavier with an X. Today we're going to talk about the fair use of copyrighted material. Yeah, you can use copyrighted material and not get sued, but you have to comply with certain specific things, okay? So that's what we're going to be talking about in lesson number 16 of this online course. And legal stuff is really important for any web reporter. So, let's get into it. Action! The fair use of copyrighted material, we could compare it to the difference between what in the Catholic Church they call the mortal sin. Okay. Mortal sin is when you do a big sin, like killing somebody, then you go directly to hell. Okay. But in the Catholic faith, if you do a venial sin, then that's like a teeny-weeny sin, a small sin. Then you will be pardoned. Why? Because you will be pardoned anyway, but this one is, like very soft, very small, very little sin. And this is a big sin, okay, a huge sin. Okay, so in comparison, fair use would be like a venial sin, because you are using things that you don't have permission to use them, but because of some circumstances, you are allowed to use it. So you're pardoned. But you have to comply with four main factors, that in case of a legal battle, the judge will decide if you did a fair use of copyrighted materials or you did not. But I mean, in this example, you will find that fair use will be like doing a little sin, because you don't have permission, but you didn't steal a lot. It's like the cashier that doesn't give back the whole change, they kept 5 cents. So it's a teeny-weeny thing. Okay. Obviously, if you use copyrighted material and you cause a big loss to the copyright owner, you cannot say it was fair use, and you're going to be punished, and you're going to go to jail. Okay, I'm talking about fair use, which is a doctrine in the U.S. in what they call common law. That is the type of law practice they use in the U.S., and it comes from the United Kingdom, because they were colonies from Great Britain, and it applies to mostly all of the countries that used to be colonies of the UK. And that means Australia, that means New Zealand, probably South Africa, obviously Canada, and the United States, which is today a big power in copyright law. And, for instance, in Latin America, a lot of countries, and I mean a lot, I would say more than half of the countries already have commercial agreements, treaties with the U.S., and in all of them, the copyrighted laws are included. So for the Central American and Caribbean agreement, they have it. For Mexican agreement, they have it. For Chile, and lots of other countries in Latin America and around the world that do commercial treaties with the U.S., they have copyright laws in a main part of the treaty. So even if it is not a law in your country, this will enlighten you, and it will be possible, if you're ever in a trial, to say, well, I was complying with the fair use, and probably judges will have an idea of what you're talking about. Okay, so let's go back. So you have four factors that the judge will take into consideration to see if you did a fair use of copyrighted material. One is the purpose. Okay? Purpose. If you did it for commercial use, if you use that copyrighted material to sell it, you're going to be in problems. Or if you did it for educational purposes or non-profit, okay? Obviously, if you use it for educational purposes or non-profit, it will probably be in the fair use spectrum, okay? Another thing, the nature of the copyrighted material. It's not the same to, it's different. Music, photographs, film, a book. So it's different, and it has a lot of different aspects. So the nature is taken into consideration. Another thing that is taken into consideration, the amount of portion. Amount or portion of the copyrighted material you took without permission. So, for instance, if you're doing a lecture on something and you say, well, I remember there was a scene in this movie that will help me in this lecture, and you take 15 seconds, 20 seconds, and the movie will last 90 minutes, so the amount of that movie with respect to the total is very small, so probably it will come into the fair use. But if you take an hour of that movie, I mean, that doesn't seem like fair use, okay? So the amount of portion is also taken into consideration. And the final thing is the effect of the on the value of the copyrighted material that the owner lost because of your action. So if you have a copyrighted material and you publish it without permission and it causes a huge loss to the owner, you are in trouble. If it doesn't cause a huge loss, maybe even stimulates and make some publicity on the owner, then he will be happy. Okay? So these four things, purpose, nature, amount, and effect, are taken into consideration by the judge if you are ever, hope not, in a trial for illegal use of copyrighted material. But this is so general, and this is a practical course, so I want to give you a 9-item checklist that you can do on your own to see if what you are about to capture or copy or publish and you don't have permission, if that constitutes fair use or not. Okay? So in these 9 items, if you pass all of them and you have 9 from 9, you won't be having any problem using that copyrighted material. Okay? If you are not complying with 1 or 2, well, maybe yes, maybe not, depending on which ones and how. But obviously, if you are breaking more than 3, you're going to be probably having a lot of problems. But it's a personal checklist. We're going to go through it right now. And it's interesting because you can do it at home and be able to value if it's worth it or not. Okay? Let's do it. Number 1 would be non-profit. If you are using these materials for non-profit, you would be in the fair use spectrum. Okay? Number 2 would be informative in nature. Okay, if you are using the material, the copyrighted material, for an informative work, let's say a documentary, let's say a newscast, a public affairs article, it will go into the fair use, okay? Informative in nature. Another thing would be that it has to add facts, okay? And or help to give some elements, informative elements, okay? Add facts, or let's put here, help inform, okay? Inform, there's an R missing, okay? Let me give you an example. For instance, if you're doing a story on organized crime, and you get a 20 seconds clip of some famous movie like The Godfather, probably that will constitute fair use, okay? It's adding about the organized crime relationship and homicides and whatever. But probably if you use that footage of The Godfather on your closing credits, then that is more like art or entertainment purposes, and then that wouldn't constitute fair use. But if it's to add facts to help inform the viewers, and that goes back to the other one that it says that is informative, then it's more fair use, okay? Number 4 would be that the judge would be happier if you took the copyrighted materials from an encyclopedia or than from a movie. So let's say, how can I put this? I could say periodicals, could that be? Or, well, let's put encyclopedia. Wait a minute. Let me put like a book here, easier. Okay. Okay. Encyclopedia of some source of information that is more like informative, not a work of art, okay? So that is one thing they will take into consideration. One of the most important things is the size, okay? That means that if you take half an hour from a movie to prove your point, that is not fair use, because you took almost the whole movie to do it, okay? So you have to take a small portion of the copyrighted material, a very small portion. The smaller the better. And that also, that will constitute a small portion of your production. So it has to be small from the copyrighted material and small in your final product, okay? So size goes both ways. Size from the material you took, and it has to be small, and size of your material, okay? So your production has to be small also. So if you're doing a 1-minute clip, maybe for a news story, you cannot put 30 seconds because that will be half of your story taken from copyrighted material, and that is not fair use, and you're going to go to jail, okay? So it's small size of what you take and a small portion of your finished production, okay? That is very, very important. It's probably basic. Okay, let me change color so we can have here. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 3 to go. The audience very important. Audience. It's not the same to have it for your school, 30 people listening for a kind of a lecture that you're giving in your school, or maybe 200 for the full school, or 50 in your workplace, then have it published in national television, okay? So that makes a difference, the audience that you are projecting it, okay? So be careful with the internet, because in the internet the audience is wide, absolutely wide. Okay. Another thing a judge will take into considerations is the frequency. If it's occasional, that you occasionally take somebody's copyrighted material, or if that you do it on every one of your programs of your work, because that is suspicious. Huh? If you always take somebody's copyrighted material, then that is not fair use. I mean, you're doing it on purpose, you're doing it every day, so you're going to jail. But if you do it occasionally, exactly when you need it, because that will help informational purposes on your production, that's okay. And the other one would be very important and very easy to do, to give credit. So even though you have not asked for permission, even though, because by the fair use doctrine you don't need to have the permission, but you have to credit. That doesn't mean you have to credit in the video, but someplace. So if you have a website, you can put it on your website. I took this and this material for that newscast or that article, blah, blah, blah. So you have the opportunity to credit the people that produce some of the material that you use without permission. Now we have the checklist, 9 items. How do we deal with and decide if our use of copyrighted material without permission is fair use or not? Okay, this is a rule of thumb, very easy to do. If you score 9 out of 9, I mean, if you're not non-profit, if you're informative, blah, 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 then you won't have any problem, because nobody will waste time suing you if they know they're going to lose. Because you're going to say, it's fair use, and it's fair use, and that's it. So if you score 9 out of 9, you're okay, no problem. If you score, you have missing, let's say, more than 3, I wouldn't recommend using that material. You're going to be having problems, okay? But let's say that if you are doing 1 or 2, well, maybe you can get away with it, depending. It always depends, okay? So be careful. Probably if you have doubts, you can go to a lawyer, especially a lawyer that has experience in copyrighted law. But at least now you have an idea, and now you have the checklist, and you can, on your own, do a simple test to see, well, it seems I won't have any problem, or probably I should stay back and don't use this because I am going to have legal trouble. And that's the idea, to give you practical tips here in this course, so you can go online, use the tools we have, but don't get in trouble and don't get sued. So that's all for today. See you on our next lesson. Bye.